Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Hopelessly Casual. I got it right this time. I'm Christian. I got that right this time as well. I probably did so for the last episode. Always here with Freya.
Hello there. How are you doing?
And today we're talking about, what is it exactly? I think cinematic universes, franchises, franchising, and that everything has to have a universe now these days.
These days, yeah, exactly. The sort of inflation of the term extended universe. I mean, how often have you heard that in the past years? I feel like every single franchise, every single instance that is put out there anyway, needs to have an extended universe.
It's an absolutely beautiful thing that in no way has changed cinema forever.
No, and it absolutely contributes massively to the film landscape.
I am so looking forward to the next Marvel DC movie coming out.
Okay, but I will say, and I know I have proposed this topic for this week,
yes,
and it comes from a very hurt place.
Oh, wow.
Because I was such a Marvel girl for the first 10 years. So like for the whole original lead up to Thanos, Infinity War, Endgame, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was just there. They got me with that. It worked. It was perfect. I had the best time. Me and my friends when I lived in London, like sit in the cinema, be so excited, punch each other in the arm all the time when a cameo happened or when a drawback or like a call to something was happening. My friend was also a massive comic nerd, so it actually read all the comics. So it could be like, oh, but that's referring to that.
First of all, it's graphic novels.
Oh, excuse you.
No, it really can't be. It's literally called Detective Comics or Marvel Comics.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it was a beautiful time, and then they continued. And then TV series started, and that's where it all went fucking downhill.
I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I do remember. Because I didn't have many graphic novels growing up, but I remember going to public libraries, like around London, and they'd have a surprising amount of graphic novels,
Yeah.
And I started reading both DC and Marvel, the two big contenders. Of course, you read the smaller ones as well, Dark Horse, Vertigo, all of those. And I always leaned a bit more towards DC, and eventually almost entirely. I enjoyed reading some of the X-Men storylines, but there was just something about the feel of DC, So when the whole cinematic universe started with Marvel, I think Iron Man was the first one, wasn't it?
Iron Man was the first one, yeah. I mean, technically the Hulk, but the Incredible Hulk, but it was never included in that because they changed the actor as well, and
yeah, fair, but doesn't that already have a post-credit scene? That one?
Yeah, it does. That's why technically it's included, but like the MCU, how we know it, did start with Iron Man.
Fair enough. So I watched... no, I didn't watch Iron Man because it was like... I was a bit like, okay, wow, it was I think the most expensive movie produced at the time with a budget of around, I think, $185 million.
What makes sense if you look at the film, yeah.
Fair enough. But I think the first Marvel Cinematic Universe movie that I watched was Thor. Mm-hmm. I think the first one was directed by Kenneth Branagh, actually.
Sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, and so I went to the cinema with a friend. He was like, I'd like to watch it. And fair enough, I don't know anything about Thor. Watched it, I felt fairly well entertained. Good enough. Post-credit scene, I watched it. But I was like, okay, now I have to watch this and this and this. And there was a time when a few years ago, when I started at the very beginning. So first I watched The Incredible Hulk, then I watched Iron Man.
Yeah.
Where I thought, the charisma of Robert Downey Jr. does a lot for that movie because it's
basically everything.
The beginning is quite interesting. He builds this suit in some Taliban prison, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the whole plot from when he comes back home is so done, it's like, oh, corporate, and then and you've got Jeff Bridges as the baddie, and then you've got basically two suits fighting each other towards it, unless it's been more than 10 years.
No, that is absolutely correct. He builds his own Iron Man suit because he wants to weaponize the thing, basically, and he's been doing shady shit with the Stark company behind Tony's back, and he was also the one responsible for Tony's kidnapping in the first place.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. I would have never remembered all of that.
Yeah.
Then I watched the second Iron Man. and I don't remember anything.
Really?
I really didn't.
Oh, I find it so
then
much more
I
entertaining.
started watching the third, and I couldn't stand it. I don't quite remember why, but I remember. But I do remember that I turned it off. I watched the first Captain America because I always think like, okay, alternate history is interesting, and then like to see the father of Tony Stark, being featured in that. It's like, okay, that's cool. When you get a feeling these things do belong together.
Yeah, they kind of connect. Yeah.
Exactly. So I was like, I'm not opposed to it. I didn't think it was a great movie. Then I watched The Winter Soldier, where everybody's like, if you just watch one Marvel movie, watch this one. At that point in time,
I think it's because that's the least superhero filmy out of the superhero
I didn't
films.
care for it, and I couldn't tell you why because I don't remember anything.
Damn, okay.
Yeah, I'm drinking now. I didn't drink while
He
watching
was drinking
those.
then.
No, I didn't. I wish I probably would have enjoyed it much more, but I didn't get the appeal, so I just opted out.
Right.
And then came, like DC said, okay, we're starting our own now, and at that point I didn't know what that meant because, I hoped, okay, cool, I'm a DC fan, I could enjoy that. Okay, look, honestly, they dropped the ball on
Completely.
this. Because, there's oh, shit, we need to play catch up. Don't give yourselves time to develop characters, storylines, start with something. No, you've got 2 movies and then, we do a big event and it all was shit.
Yeah, and Marvel did the right thing where every single Avenger, bar, I think, Black Widow and Hawkeye, but they were featured in other solo films, had their own plot lines that were established, and we all knew the characters going in. I mean, Hulk is sort of like the middle thing because they changed character. Mark Ruffalo wasn't playing him. I think it was
Edward Norton.
Edward Norton
at the time.
But they still ran, I believe, because that's actually the only Marvel film that I haven't seen, The Incredible Hulk, because
you didn't.
No, I didn't.
I watched it.
I never cared for Hulk as a franchise.
And I do remember some things because Tim Roth is in it.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, that makes sense. For everyone who doesn't know, massive. Okay.
And believe me, the payoff, it's simply not worth it because Hulk is fighting an orange Hulk towards the end, and you're just like, wow, that was fucking. Yeah, exactly.
Thing is, when I was a kid, I believe when I was something around 8. We would have different TV channel like Disney Channel and everything, so we wouldn't have just normal cable. And that way we had it was called Premiere at the time, which later became
I think it's
Sky.
now Sky. Yeah,
yeah. It was Premiere at the time, and we had there was different channels. So I had I had Disney Channel and Jetix. It was called.
Oh yeah, I do remember something like this.
Jetix sort of was made to cater a bit more to the pre-teenage boys and everything, but I loved everything was on it. All the Marvel cartoon animated series were on there, so X-Men 90s.
The classic X-Men, yeah.
And
Beautiful.
Hulk was on there as well as an animated.
Oh right, there was a cartoon. There was a Hulk cartoon.
And that it didn't necessarily upset me, but at that age I did not care for a protagonist that was also sort of an antagonist, because whenever I saw it, it was always Hulk posed a danger still. So whenever Bruce Banner would turn, it was a bad thing in a way. And I didn't like that when I was younger, because I very much had I was a massive action anything fan and fantasy and superheroes. I always loved that stuff, liked it. But I'm also was very much a kid that grew up on very, very friendship, loyalty, chosen family typecast things, anime, the early animes and everything and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't like Hulk when I was that age, so I never watched the live action one. Never.
Let me tell you, I even watched the Ang Lee one. That was the one before that. There was one before that. And even before that, there was another one with Lou Ferrigno as the Hulk.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know that from Supernatural as a callback.
And I remember watching the Ang Lee one while I was in France. And that was one hell of an interesting movie because half of it you couldn't see because it was shot in the fucking dark.
Damn.
But still though, living in London while, I suppose MCU hit their peak was, with Endgame and everything before that in Infinity War.
It was so much fun. For me, it was so much fun.
Yes, I can imagine, and even though it didn't bother me at all, you recognised game, I suppose, because like when you walk through Leicester Square or whatever, and then everything, okay, they're going to have the premiere. Everything is basically cordoned off, and everything.
I'm getting so hyped thinking about that.
Yeah, exactly. I think I thought about the whole what would you call it? The whole sheer scale of it.
Insane.
Because this has been building up at that point for what?
10 years. They were working on the MCU for 10 years.
Exactly. So, some people, I read some posts online, was like, they watched the movies and, of course, obviously there's going to be some spoilers in here, so warnings in effect from now on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Where there were people saying after watching the movie or before it, I don't know who's going to die, I grew up with those characters and whatnot. And it felt a bit, to me, after this event was concluded, as someone who didn't consume it, it felt a bit weird when there were things like the Spider-Man movies coming out that were obviously taking place before that because some characters were still alive and all of that. It's like, with for example, Tony Stark. He's going to die in
he died in Endgame. What the Spider-Man that came after was what was it? Wait,
No Way Home.
Far From Home.
Far From Home.
Which is set in Europe, so Spider-Man goes on a class trip basically, he's mourning. So that's the plot point is that he's mourning. Tony Stark is his mentor.
Fair enough, but I think the movies can. Even those that come out now, they're not chronological. They can be set before the event. They can be set after. Isn't that correct?
No, it's actually not true. They
are. What about Black Widow though?
True. Black Widow is an anachronistic film in that, but that is made clear. So
okay, fair enough. Then I was under a false impression there.
Yeah, because the post-credit scene of that then again refers back to new instances of it.
Okay, fair enough. But the thing is, and then they try to. This is me really from an outside perspective, coming up, where it was it was no longer an event, really, except for the Spider-Man movies.
So
those were still hyped, but things like Shang-Chi or the Eternals, they just came and went.
Yeah.
Sometimes you didn't even realise they were in cinemas. I remember walking past one cinema where it was Shang-Chi and the 7 or 10 rings, something like
10
this.
rings.
And it's no one cared for them because,
Which is a shame because it's actually quite a fun film.
No, I'm sure it is. But the thing is, I didn't know who those people are. And, as someone who only casually consumed Marvel comics, of course I knew who Thor was, Captain America, Iron Man, Black Widow, you name them, even Hawkeye, who's fairly obscure to someone from the outside. To be fair,
Iron Man and Thor were fairly obscure comic-wise in comparison as well. Because the interesting thing about the MCU is that Marvel, I actually only know this because in, 2017, 2018, BBC had such a long article on the history of Marvel during the lead up to the peak of the MCU. And so what I learned from reading that was basically Marvel was about to die when it was just doing comics in the 90s, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I don't know the exact years anymore. But Marvel was really having a tough time because comic sales dropped everywhere.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah, it's true.
And Marvel was about to go bankrupt. And what they then did was they sold their best properties to Sony, which at the time were the X-Men
and Fantastic Four
and Spider-Man.
I think. Isn't it? I think they celebrated this in Multiverse of Madness that the X-Men were back in the fold now.
Yes, somewhat. I mean, sort of.
But they brought in Xavier, didn't they?
Believe me, I will get to that. But so Marvel sold their best-selling properties at the time, which then Sony, worked decently well with. I mean, the X-Men films are very okay. I do enjoy the original trilogy with Patrick Stewart and Sir Ian McKellen, and I also quite enjoy the new properties with James McAvoy and
Days of Future Past is amazing.
Yes, and what's his name? I can only think of the character name right now.
Michael Fassbender.
Yes, thank you. Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire. Also, don't need to talk about those. Those were but they were successful at the time.
They're cult classics at this point, but they're sort of. Not trash, that'd be a bit too harsh.
They didn't age too well.
No, they're the classic early 2000s superhero movies.
Exactly, and they're very much that. And what was the other property I mentioned? It was Fantastic Four, of course.
Those were horrible.
Yeah,
we're talking Chris Evans, who's later going to be Captain
know.
America, and
he
who
was
will
the
always
flame,
be Jake Weiler
It's-
from Not Another Teen Movie. And if you haven't watched Not Another Teen Movie, go watch Not Another Teen Movie. It's fucking brilliant.
But it's really fun because that's how Marvel saved themselves. And I actually do not remember what made them want to produce their own movies eventually. I have no idea. But they sat there at the table and they were like, okay, well, comic sales are still not, I mean, we're okay, but it's not where the money is.
Yeah.
And
true.
then they were like, but we sold our most known things. What are we going to do? And then they were debating of going with something like not quite as familiar with people, but at least somewhat known properties. But eventually they were like, no, you know what we're going to do? We're gonna take something very obscure, very few people know, and then we're gonna cast an actor who kind of needs a comeback and see what happens. And that's Iron Man. And it went through the roof. And then they could, and when that went well, because they obviously already had the idea of doing continuous films simply because comics work that way, right? I mean, comics are insane. Comics need to reset themselves all the fucking time because they get too complicated. Obviously, that was their MO anyway, because that's a okay, let's have the idea. So they were thinking, okay, which properties can we use? And that's why they used Iron Man, that's why they used Thor, that's why the whole idea of Avengers came up, because even Avengers wasn't that well known.
No,
because,
it's true.
I mean, the comic canon of who is an Avenger is insane. Basically, everyone is an Avenger. Like, insane. I think Magneto at one point was an Avenger.
I think that there's this fairly known group poster which shows all the Avengers.
Yes.
And I think it's I don't know, it's bigger than fucking Austria.
It's insane. Like, exactly. But, you know, Marvel did a good thing. It worked. They cast correctly. They read the signs of the time. And they established a very well working property. And then they basically like figured out, okay, what is the formula that is working? And over time they developed the very specific Marvel humor that we all sort of know when we like mention it, like this sort of like low-key, not necessarily playing it for jokes, but not really taking yourself too seriously. Every actor having their own quirks, like for example, Robert Downey Jr. sounding like he's ad-libbing his lines half the fucking time.
Nothing was more infuriating than the whole bit of Tony Stark and whatever Gwyneth
Paltrow, yeah.
Gwyneth Paltrow's character talking over each other.
All the time.
Once it's charming, and then after a while it's like, shut the fuck up.
Things that people feel like when they listen to us. But yeah.
I don't give a shit. I don't get millions for this. At this point, I'm not getting anything for this. So you guys are lucky to have us. Please don't stop listening.
But the issue that I see with the MCU, because again, I have a lot of love. I don't love every film. I don't necessarily love the first Captain America, simply because I'm not the biggest fan of... It's very serious in comparison, and I'm not the biggest fan of Captain America as a character himself, because it's kind of like a Superman problem. He's too clean, too pristine,
Well, his name is fucking Captain America.
Yeah, exactly. But he's also too morally correct. There's like, I'm just slipping off of him, you know? He's just too perfect.
He's Teflon.
I need some edges, give me some... Bucky, his best friend. I always quite like Bucky. Later, the Winter Soldier.
The Winter Soldier, yeah.
But you know, I still watched all of them. I've rewatched all of them. I believe from the first, from the Infinity Saga is what they are referred to, right? There's not a single film that I haven't at least watched 3 times.
Let me tell you this, if I may interrupt you for a second. There. A friend of mine about 1.5 years ago rewatched every Marvel property pertaining to the MCU. I think it took her a month. Mm-hmm. That includes the TV shows, you know, like WandaVision, Loki, what was out at the time. But, you know, like the sheer amount of what it was. And the thing is, I think, unless I'm gravely mistaken, it's unprecedented for actors to be in such high value properties for such an extended amount of time. Where it's like, 5 years have gone. 5 years have gone since the last time we needed you, but we need you to play, I don't know, Doctor Strange again.
I think James Bond may be the only property that doesn't go with that. And Daniel Craig as well, because I think he's the longest Bond.
Yes, because during I think the gaps between movies got longer and longer. Exactly. And back in the day, I'm just rewatching the Bond films now, you know, like back in the day, 62, 63, 64, got a new movie every year that meant something else back in the day. But I think between, what was it, Spectre and No Time to Die, there was like a 5 or 6 year gap.
Quite the gap.
Something like this.
Yeah, because Spectre came out when I had when I was about to move to London, so in like 2015, 2016.
Yeah, it must have been.
Because it features buildings that I know that I actually was in while rewatching the film, which is quite fun.
Which is always fun.
But then No Time to Die came out when I had already moved back to Germany.
The thing is though, I mean, it took her about a month, you know, like if you're not, I mean, you can do it a lot quicker, I suppose, if you're not doing anything
you're not binging.
But exactly. Yeah. But she was spending quite some time on them. And the thing is, something that I've come to loathe when there's a property that I'm invested in, Star Wars still to this point, when sooner or later, and I think Marvel started the trend, someone comes, okay, this is phase so-and-so. And if people start talking about phase, I immediately switch off whatever presentation this is, because I really don't want to know, because at this point, depending on the property, but I feel after about 20 years, it feels like we're milking.
Yeah.
Sometimes with more quality, don't get me wrong, even in the new Star Wars canon, I find a lot of things I very much like, but sometimes, for the most part, I'm just sitting there and I'm going, meh. You know, and for example, Marvel did a lot of smart choices with their casting. Some of the actors, you know, like if you're an actor, your feelings might be ambivalent about this because, you know, like you might be associated with a character. Yeah. Like, for example, I think
like Robert Downey Jr. with Oppenheimer now, how much of a hard time he had to not be Iron Man, you know?
Exactly, and not to be associated, and done so quite successfully. He just got an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor.
I didn't recognize him initially. I knew he was in it. I had a double take.
It was absolutely great. Exactly. It took me a moment to like, I know the guy. I first thought, and I was ashamed admitting this. Because they made him a bit older, it's like, oh, is that Ben Kingsley? It's like
I thought the same thing.
Thank you.
It was a bit older, and it was the
bald cap.
Yeah. But Marvel, and just in the terms of phases, I mean, what Marvel shat the bed with completely is that they lost the plot of where they're going, because I think the Infinity Saga, so phases 1 to 3, works well because it builds up to a very clear climax. It builds up Thanos as the villain from Avengers onwards. So
and can you go much bigger than what Thanos was doing? Can you really?
That's the thing. It's ridiculous. So like it's tight, it works. You know, they have a clear trajectory. Everything ties in. Very satisfying. Great. All good. Very few pointers. Age of Ultron was meh, but hey. After that, phase 4, which introduced the TV series and kind of had the fallout that the remaining characters worked with, in my opinion, also still worked. So I actually watched Shang-Chi and Eternals, and I mean, contrary to popular opinion, had quite a good time with both of them, because Shang-Chi, I think, works very well as a Marvel property standalone, because it introduces a new character. We have basically no callback to anyone else. It's a standalone film, pretty much. There's some, in dialogue, there's some callbacks to the events. All good. It's fun. Great casting. I unfortunately forget his name, but I think his last name is Liu. But the main character, the lead actor, does a fantastic job. Very likable. Have seen him on I think Selling Sunset, like thing about like buying shows in houses in Hollywood. Very likable, very sweet. So that works. Eternals, admittedly a very long watch and not as action driven as I used to. First, if I'm not mistaken, I may be mistaken, I don't think I am, but maybe. First Marvel property directed by a woman, I believe. Very aesthetic. Does a very good job, in my opinion, at handling a big rota of new characters, because we have the Eternals, I believe there's 9 of them, which are all newly introduced there. But it works, all good. The first TV shows that came out, WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Loki, I also still enjoyed and had a good time with.
A lot of people did, actually.
Yeah, in their defense, they had a hard time because of COVID, because the shooting was all over the place. Like the schedules didn't align, and the order in which the shows were released was messed up. Because if I'm not completely mistaken, Falcon and the Winter Soldier was meant to be released before WandaVision, but they had to cut an entire part from Falcon and the Winter Soldier because actually a plot point was going to be a pandemic.
Oh,
which
right.
obviously
that might have been
couldn't have been done at that point. But
yeah.
it still worked because all of them had characters that we were familiar with. You know, Falcon and the Winter Soldier obviously featuring with the question of how Sam and Bucky were going to deal with, like Sam being the new Captain America, Bucky still being his sidekick. How are they going to live up to the legacy of Steve? Figuring out the differences. All good. WandaVision, surprisingly dark, also really fun. But shows a character that we have come to love succumb to her grief and eventually somewhat turn into a villain herself due to it, which I find a refreshing take for Marvel as being the chipper property in comparison to DC somewhat.
Yeah.
And Loki worked quite well because Loki's also a fan favorite and it was quite removed from the rest and it was fine. But then Marvel, and by that I mean Kevin Feige, the executive producer.
Is that how you pronounce his last name?
That's how I know her. But then I
have absolutely... I think I never said the name out loud because I was like, somebody's going to tell me it's not right. Even when I'm at home alone, I never tried.
Let's be clear about this. His name is spelled F-I-E-G-E. F-E-I-G-E, which is a German word. Which is just the word for what's the fucking fruit?
Fig.
Yeah, it's a fig. But that's very clearly his German roots. But obviously that's not how you pronounce his name because it would be Feige, and that's not happening. I'm copying this from Australians that I listen to
because
on a
they're
podcast.
Fucking reliable.
So I don't know. Do not quote me on this. It's just how I'm used to hearing the name from an English-speaking perspective. Anyway, Kevin Feige had the audacity, and I deliberately put it that way. In the middle of phase 5.
I'm so glad I'm having a beer right now because I have a hard time following. Go on.
He said, well, we all know where we are going at this point. As in, like, it's so clear the next villain that we're building up. We know what we're... No, they don't. So they have introduced several properties, new characters that never came back. Shang-Chi came out in, I think, 2021. I was
about to ask, have they done anything with him?
No, never done anything with him.
Useful.
Not done anything with the Eternals.
Love it.
They have they have never done anything with the fallout from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, more or less, because what is set up there is the idea of like a dark Avengers team being assembled and set up by like, you have like sort of like the counter Captain America, you have the counter Black Widow and all that kind of stuff. Hasn't happened anything with at this point, like as far as I'm aware, nothing happened with that. You don't know which villain is the next villain, because Doctor Strange in Multiverse of Madness in the end suddenly seems to be evil. We don't know. We have the villain of Loki, who's a Kang, who was gonna be the next villain, at least for the next Avengers movie. But that's not a Thanos threat. That's just the next Avengers movie. We don't know what the Thanos threat is. Eternals ends with a fucking robot threatening to blow up Earth. Who knows?
What happens to him?
Who knows? And in that mess, to be like, oh, it's so very clear in which... No, it's not. No, you don't know.
You're lying through your teeth.
The problem is you had one clear storyline circling around, in the end, 2 main characters, because it all came down to Captain America and Iron Man, which you both killed off. Fair enough, ends the plot. I get that. It ends the plot line. It's fine. It's fair.
Just for me, for my understanding, but Captain America went back in time to be with his first love.
Peggy, yes.
Useful.
Yes. Okay. Which means he's dead by now, because he would be like, 110 or something. But yeah,
America.
So both of them died, right? And that's fair. But then you branched off. You reached one point, from one point, another point, straight line. All good, Infinity Saga. But from that point where that ended, you didn't just branch off into 1 or 2 branches that could eventually come back together. No, you kept branching off and kept branching off and kept branching
off. But this is why I am so happy.
I stopped watching by now, by the way. I'm not...
There we go.
I'm not there
This
anymore.
is exactly what I would have done, because, I become obsessive about these things. And this is, for example, why just, like for a parallel, I have problems with open world RPGs that give you too many options, because
Right.
I have a problem focusing, or like deciding on what to focus, because I don't want to miss out.
So when is that ADHD diagnosis coming in?
It was diagnosed a few years ago. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Do you expect me to wear a plaque? And then the thing was, by the time, when DC came around, I remember I watched Man of Steel. I liked it fairly much. I thought the casting was solid. I thought it was a bit, like in terms of visual styles, it never quite worked for me what DC was doing with their mainline things.
Agreed.
And then, then was it directly into Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. I'm not, and this is why we're called Hopelessly Casual, I'm not too certain about certain things anymore, because I simply stopped caring. I think Batman v Superman had solid elements. I liked the introduction of Wonder Woman.
Mother.
Yeah, for fuck's sake. But Wonder Woman was cool. She came in, she had this kick-ass theme. She came in, she kicked all sorts of butt. Then even when she got, knocked down, she was like, okay, cool, let's do this. And then, all of this happened. Then, like the Wonder Woman movie came at some point. Yeah. Everybody loved it. I loathed it. I thought it was so fucking stupid.
See, that I forgot. I saw it. I forgot all about it.
And then, I didn't even... I tried watching Aquaman.
I did watch Aquaman.
I thought Willem Dafoe could carry me through that abomination of a movie. And Willem Dafoe is a fucking treat. He's always good,
he
no
always
matter
is,
what.
but the CGI is so bad in that film.
And
I didn't care for the chemistry between Jason Momoa and Emma.
They didn't have any.
any.
I stopped watching when they were in Italy, on that
I
coast,
get that.
in that
I
coastal
get
town,
that.
and the dialogue was so forced. It was Star Wars Episode 3 times 100, and I was like, no, I'm not doing this. And what else was there? I tried watching when they released it on Netflix, the Snyder cut.
Oh yeah.
Of Justice League. I didn't bother with the original before that. It felt so artsy fartsy, because all of a sudden it was black and white, the cover, and it was presented in 4:3, not 16:9. And I was like,
the pretentiousness.
Yeah, I don't know. Somebody explained it to me. It was done. I don't know what the reason was. I don't remember. I'm hopelessly casual again, referring to it. But the thing is, it started out, and this was to be the main, the big thing, and it didn't feel like it, because the CGI still looked
horrible.
Weird.
Let's just call it. It's weird. DC can't get CGI right.
I didn't care for the characters or anything.
No, neither. Same. DC always stays somewhat superficial. It never lets me really care about a character. I don't.
And the thing is, Man of Steel was good. I like Man of Steel.
Seen it.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the dynamic they gave Zod, where he was like, okay, I was bred to protect Krypton, no matter what. And I sort of felt that. It wasn't, like a grandiose movie or anything. No, not at all.
No, but I've heard good things about it. I gotta say.
But the thing is, then it's like DC realized they rushed things, and then it's like, okay, now we're going to do Suicide Squad. Absolute fucking bullshit. Even though the casting was solid, it could have worked. And then it's
if they had pre-established the characters. I believe we spoke about this before.
No. Not only if they pre-established the characters, if the fucking plot wouldn't have fucking sucked. It's like, oh, there is now this hyper being that's threatening to take over / destroy the world. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
And then it has those nameless sort of minions that look like putties from the first from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And the thing is, what was the thing?
What was it?
Yeah. Then they started with the soft reboots, and then it's like
the Suicide Squad.
And I didn't bother to watch it.
I didn't either.
Even though the trailer looked promising.
And allegedly it was heaps better. But
then you had The Joker, which was a good movie.
It was okay,
solid great performance by Joaquin Phoenix.
Yes,
absolutely.
But I don't care too much for it. I think it's overhyped. It's good, but
and then there was like, okay, fair enough. This is a character study. I can get on board with that. Very much. And then it was like, okay, why was it necessary by the end of it to kill Bruce Wayne's parents. I know this is the Batman origin story, but the director said before the movie came out, this is not going to be part of any extended
and
universe.
That's what made it so interesting. And then
it's like, okay, are we setting up a Batman in this world? And now a sequel's coming.
Yeah.
To the Joker.
I just saw a post by Lady Gaga yesterday about
she's
the shooting,
in that,
and I'm excited for that. She's a great actress.
No, don't get me wrong, but it also has musical elements.
Yeah, it's a musical.
It might actually work, because if the movie says let's go all out, I might be on board for that. The jury's still out. I haven't watched it yet.
But they gotta really commit. They gotta really commit to that.
Exactly.
Otherwise
They can't be half-assed about this.
No.
But at this point, I'm like, soft reboots. Then there's the Arrowverse, where I tried watching Arrow, and I hated it. I hated it so much.
Yeah.
I
never got into it.
Because my favorite superhero in the DC universe is Green Arrow. And Green Arrow is a well-written character, in my opinion. And they pissed that all away, I feel, for, like sort of the OC, but with superhero elements, I guess. I didn't care for the show The Flash.
Yeah.
Supergirl, I tried to watch. It was abominable, which is a shame, because Supergirl can be an interesting character. And I don't have the time to watch that many TV shows these days. And
I stopped at Moon Knight with Marvel, just for like reference.
Yeah, that happened too. Yeah. Or Werewolf by Night. And it's all everywhere. There's a Marvel Studios logo. I'm so discouraged. Don't get me wrong. It's nice that sagas exist,
sure,
or multi-part stories.
Absolutely.
But the thing is, when I feel like I want to start a movie, and I'm obsessive in that way, and I feel like I'm missing out on everything because I'm not starting at point 0 in the chronology.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
I don't want to, and at this point, what is DC trying to do? What are they trying to salvage?
I have no idea. They honestly, both DC and Marvel, the only thing that they, I think, could feasibly do is do the comic thing of reset.
The thing is, I mean, don't get me wrong. At the moment, I have to say I have no idea what DC's plan is, so I can't say if they have a road. They probably have a roadmap. But then there was the movie The Flash, which brought back Michael Keaton, which is a very popular thing to do, like Spider-Man did it too, with Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, that's fair enough, but I hear mixed things. Some people say like this is the greatest superhero movie DC's ever put out.
I will never watch it, but
other people hate it. Yeah, Ezra Miller is more than problematic.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I'm like, I'm no longer willing. I just want to go to the cinema and maybe watch a movie. And don't get me wrong, I'm more forgiving, for example, when it comes to Star Wars, because I know Star Wars has done a lot of things in the new canon timeline that a lot of people don't like, and I agree with a lot of those things. But it was a very important thing in my childhood, so I'm always interested about what they're going to put out next.
That's the thing. I feel like if there's a certain element of nostalgia to things, me at least, and from the looks of it, you as well, we're more willing to take the abuse in a way, because we have fond memories of it. There's nostalgia with it. For me, obviously, the Marvel films sort of came out and started being big when I was like in my early teen years, so that still counts. Supernatural is a very, very, very prominent example there, because I started watching Supernatural when I was like 11, I think. Way too young for that show on that note, but that doesn't matter. Originally it was written to consist of 5 seasons. Those were still very long, because bar season 3, which was hit by a writer's strike and thus had half the amount of episodes it usually does, all the other seasons have something between 20 and 23 episodes.
Which was fairly normal at the time.
At the time, exactly, golden age of TV and all of that. But then those episodes also being 45 minutes to 50 minutes long. So
also fairly normal,
yeah, exactly. But it's a commitment, if you think about it.
Absolutely.
But it was originally intended and written by the creator Eric Kripke, who people know maybe because he's doing The Boys as well on Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
Also a lot of supernatural Easter eggs, and that's one. And some like a lot of recurring actors. It's quite fun as a fan to watch that. But that was a concise story for the first 5 seasons that had callbacks in of itself to other seasons. So you'd have recurring characters from a different season from years ago, which then suddenly came back in a different capacity. Or things were set up and then you thought they were done and then they were opened up again because actually no, more content there. And then after it had ended, in quotation marks ended, they realized, cash cow. And they kept writing it and they kept writing it. And then those seasons never really, it turned from being a circle in storytelling with callbacks to a straight line, because they then just produced and produced and produced.
And there's something.
I still watched all of it because
to be said there. I said this in the previous episode. I used to be very obsessive about Star Wars. It was my first real fandom, and I used to be escapist about it. And these days, sometimes I'm not happy about things that happen within that universe or decisions that are being taken. But I realise I'm not as involved anymore.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I am very excited, for example, when a new Star Wars game comes out, because, the fond memories of Star Wars games.
Also, they tend to be very good.
Yeah, I mean, Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor I enjoyed greatly. But, with the TV shows coming out, for example, I was one of the few people who didn't enjoy The Mandalorian.
Right.
The character of The Mandalorian, I thought Bo-Katan Kryze was way more interesting. I hate fucking Grogu because, I enjoyed Kenobi, which a lot of people
Baby
didn't.
Yoda for people that don't know.
Exactly. I enjoyed Kenobi. Most people didn't, apparently. Fair enough, good point. I don't care. Andor was great, but at the same time, was also, and I think this was done with Marvel first, at least to my knowledge, we were used at this point we were used to TV shows being turned into movies,
And not
but
the
to
other
have
way.
people, especially someone as sacred to a fandom like Luke Skywalker, turn up rejuvenated in a TV show. Seeing Tarkin and Leia in Rogue One, a spin-off movie that basically tells you up to minutes before A New Hope, that was one thing, and also CGI-wise a bit wonky, but still. But to have Luke Skywalker in it, and it's
Felt
wow.
cheap, did it?
No, not necessarily cheap, but just, it's one of those moments where you realise, oh yes, this is all belonging together. And this, I don't know, I really can't tell you how I feel about this.
Fair.
Because, some of it I liked, some of it just fell for the wow factor, because I didn't feel that Grogu or his plot line or whatever added anything to the show, really. I would have more liked...
Other than merchandise.
Yeah, exactly. I would have liked a more lone gunman. Yeah, I suppose Grogu was supposed to show...
His human side.
Yeah, exactly. The Mandalorian's caring side, fair enough, but it immediately watered down the character. Would have been nice for at least a season to have this sort of, just professional killer, and then realise he's now no longer, out for himself or something like this. And then, now we've got The Acolyte coming up, which is the first TV show set during the High Republic, which is, the main event happening in Star Wars right now. Where they, I started reading a book on that. Actually, they've got a character they know from the books and comic books that's going to be in the show, which is interesting, which is always, something that I find very cool. When it's just like, wow, you've got cross media things. Like, for example, after finishing Jedi Fallen Order, I think that the last stage of the game happens at the Castle Inquisitorius, where the Inquisitors hail from. And to see that in Kenobi, that gives basically legitimacy to the video game. Because, it's all one universe, but to see it translated from one media to another, that sometimes really gets me.
Yeah, I understand that.
And, I was, you can say about the Solo movie what you want, but to all of a sudden see Darth Maul, who didn't die in episode 1, and if you only watch the movies... and he didn't watch the Clone Wars, where it's clear that Maul survived and actually recovered and is now the leader of the Black Sun. And I knew all of that, and I watched Solo in cinemas, and I was like, oh, it's an okay movie. But when his hologram appeared, And I sat there with my then girlfriend, who had absolutely nothing to do with Star Wars, and you could hear me audibly in the audience going, "Oh shit!" because I didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a genuinely cool moment. But like this, it gets you a sense of something greater is happening than just
Right.
like something that happens in 1, 2, 3 movies, whatever, and then even if you read the books or whatever. What reaches the mainstream, and something that is like a TV show or a movie is easier to consume than maybe go out or more readily or people are more ready to consume it than to say, maybe I read one of the Star Wars expanded universe novels. Casual fans most likely won't do that,
Sure.
but they might check out a TV show.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because the budget for those things are insane. The production price on an episode of Kenobi is incredible. To bring back the actors and everything, of course, as a fan you sit there and it's like, but at the same time, I'm so fatigued. I enjoyed
that's the thing.
I enjoyed Dune very much because I was like, let's see how it holds up to Dune 1984. And I love the book. I read the book twice.
Right.
How it holds up to Jodorowsky's vision, who never managed to make the movie, but there's a great documentary. And, I enjoyed those movies very much. I thought the changes done, or the changes they made, compared to the books, made sense for the most part. But now there's already talk about, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. We might tap into Dune Messiah and, if I'm not mistaken, Children of Dune. And I'm like, please don't.
Yeah.
You had a good thing going there. I think the first movie was great. The second one was something I hadn't seen in sci-fi as such. Please don't franchise it out.
Something you said though makes me think of actually a very good thing about extended universes and more space around it in a way, because I think we've been ripping into the idea quite a bit, and that fair, especially the fatigue point when you just like, if you oversaturate your own market, it'll explode. Like, completely different thing, but like I used to be quite a big fan of RuPaul's Drag Race, till it just was too much, because they had like normal Drag Race, then they had All Stars, then they had Drag Race UK, then they had Drag Race Thailand, Drag Race Philippines, Drag Race Holland, Drag Race France, Drag Race Canada, Drag Race Germany. It's just too much.
You're not making these up.
I'm not making these up.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. However, I think what is quite a wonderful thing about extended universes and franchises, especially when we talk about sort of cross-media crossovers, is the space that it sort of allows for more people that may be a fan of it or may like it to add to the universe, maybe in a canon way. Because sometimes books are written, sometimes games are developed, sometimes the comics are being made, and I think that's really fun. One Piece is one example for that, and I will admit I don't know too much about this anymore, because there used to be a time where I would buy, we talked about it, I still buy all the mangas eventually, but there's also additional books with like character information, world building information. They all have that, and I used to buy those as well, not anymore.
Yeah, basically the in-universe encyclopedia.
Exactly.
Like I have here with the Star Wars
Exactly,
books.
which you need at some point with an ongoing series since 97.
Fucking hell.
But what I have recently learned, which I find quite interesting, is by now there's mangas, like standalone one-shots, drawn and written by people that are not Eiichiro Oda, the original author, that are considered canon. By him officially. So like there will be basically fan drawings, even though it's made by like an official mangaka, like an actual professional, but who's not actually involved in One Piece in of itself, drawing, for example, a pre-story of a character, like just as a prequel of a side character. And I don't know how much that is being checked in then with the original author or with his production team. However, I know they exist, they look different because they have a different art style, obviously it's a different person, but they are part of the One Piece canon. Mm-hmm. Other than some films that actually come out, because Japan always has the thing of like successful franchise, anime need to release cinema releases as well. And
yeah, they did that with Dragon Ball several
They do that
times,
with all of the successful
I'm
properties.
really not involved with that,
Yeah,
but it
but
always
they-
strikes me as weird when I see something like this.
Because they actually released them in cinema. Like, it's a normal cinema film. And most of the One Piece cinema films are not canon. They just exist. It's just like a standalone adventure that doesn't impact anything.
But didn't unless I'm making this up right now, wasn't there one that was also released, at least in Britain? I think I remember
Here
something
as
of...
One Piece Red.
There
and
we are.
that was released here a year ago or 2 years ago. I actually went to see it with a common friend of ours. Really fun, really cool. It was quite the event. It was quite special here in Germany to go to the cinema. We went to the big cinema Dammtor, Cinemax in Dammtor.
Okay,
It's like one of the big screens. And just watch an anime film, which you normally would have to buy on DVD, potentially even as an foreign import,
Unless
because
it's a
they're not
Ghibli,
released here.
like that's shown
Exactly.
in cinema.
But I think it's a quite cool thing that a franchise and One Piece wouldn't necessarily count as an extended universe, I guess, because it's one straight storyline, but I feel like because of the huge scale of it, we can sort of add it to this conversation. That it gotten to a point where, like, in a way, foreign people from the franchise, not really involved in, not the original author, not the original people, artists, anything, draw something and release it, and it's added to the canon. And that's, I mean, I feel like that's a thing for Star Wars as well, that with like the different production companies behind different things, like obviously it all ends up Lucasfilms in the end, but the games, like we said, like especially the Jedi Last Survivor and Fallen Order have been incredibly hyped and insane sales on PlayStation, I believe, right? Mainly, I believe, and it's sort of Supernatural had the same thing where, like, there's books released that aren't original episodes. It's basically fan edits that people, it's fan fiction essentially, but actually printed and released.
Well, the thing is, of course, you know,
Cool.
like I think at the end of, I think it was a Star Wars property, I let the credits roll, right? And I think there's somebody who's in charge of continuity, you know, basically makes an in-universe
Bless
check.
their hearts.
Yeah, it seriously is. But basically they're sitting there and saying, no, you can't do this because this would contradict what happened there, or, you know, like, oh no, the plans we've got there.
My God, that job.
Yeah, but the thing is also, what really, really, really pisses me off is when I get the feeling, okay, we're trying to cash in on this,
Yeah,
and
I get
everything is done with a sequel in mind, and it was nowhere, in
that's
my
always been
opinion,
the issue.
more obvious than with the dark universe they tried to establish with the motherfucking Mummy, you know, the Tom Cruise version.
I didn't bother watching it because
Same.
I love the Brandon Fraser ones, and I didn't.
And
want...
it's not even about that, because I have, and you can see it here, you see the Universal Monster Box.
Yeah.
And those are, you know, they contain obviously Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, the Invisible Man,
The Mummy.
the Mummy, the Creature from the Black Lagoon, and those movies were classics from the 1930s, I think. Don't quote me on that. All the way almost to the 50s. And those were the original, you know, like those were the Universal monsters. Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
The internet.
To this day, everybody knows them.
Exactly. And, you know, people on the internet are very fond of them. I watch them very late because, you know, there's certain YouTubers, certain content creators where I'm like, oh, they talk so much about this. I feel like I should watch them. Mm-hmm. Some of them are just an hour long, which is normal at the time.
Yeah.
But, you know, like some of the acting and writing might seem hammy, but there's so much, especially with the set pieces, there's so much work put into them. And, you know, like, yes, I of course know the Brandon Fraser Mummy movies and I like them very much. But, you know, like, of course, this was supposed to, because it was also done by Universal, the dark universe was supposed to pay homage to that. And then you've got Tom Cruise, you've got this forgettable story, you've got Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll, who eventually, I suppose, will turn into Hyde. And you know, well, like, you set this up, it failed so spectacularly, and I'm like, yeah, good on you. I'm not so cross with, for example, what's it called? The Conjuring Extended Universe? Yeah. Because I don't watch those. I watched one or two, I don't find them particularly entertaining.
One got me so hard, I was so scared.
To be perfectly honest, I don't find them particularly a lot better than other horror movies. Some of the recurring characters are quite interesting, don't get me wrong.
Like the main characters, I think they are like quite likable protagonists for a horror franchise.
Fair enough. But I'm like, this has the typical, for me, horror movie tropes. I'm not going to be involved with this. It's like why Annabelle is doing this and why the nun is doing that and how this is connected. I don't give a flying fuck. But the thing is, like, at least I say, okay, with horror movies, that might be interesting, like to have what you call interdisciplinary.
Like you always used to. You have Freddy Krueger versus Jason, I think.
That was,
all these
wasn't,
kind of things.
That wasn't a good movie, but like everybody was waiting for it because
the 80s was just mad with
this
that.
wasn't in the 80s.
90s?
This was the 2000s.
Really?
Yes, because like I think the slasher movie.
The first. The Nightmare on Elm Street was the 80s.
Yeah. So was Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, there was rumors about, or basically the movie was in production hell for God knows how long. And like Freddy vs. Jason is so early 2000. I find it very enjoyable. It's not a good movie.
I need to see it still because I'm actually quite a big horror fan. But
Have you watched Jason X?
No.
He goes to space in that one.
I love that.
We'll do a double feature. We watch Jason X and Freddy versus
please.
Jason, and then we can do an episode on this.
Yes, please.
Because they're very enjoyable. Not good movies, but fucking enjoyable.
That's the thing, because horror, and I find it very interesting to add the genre in of itself to this topic. Horror is such a standout film genre in of itself, how it functions. Because I'm actually, when doing my studies, for some reason, I found myself focusing on horror films quite a bit and writing a lot on horror films, and always sort of like we always had like sort of like topics, and every week different area that we were looking at, and then you would eventually get like 10 essay questions. You would choose one that would be like your assignment for the semester, and I always found myself choosing horror related ones because horror to me is a very, in a way, underestimated genre because it seems so superficial, while there's a lot of intricacies behind it, and actually a lot of things need to happen for horror to work and for it to even be established as a genre.
And if I just may, arguably horror, and especially what Universal did, was the first extended universe.
Yeah.
Because you'd have, I don't know, Dracula versus Frankenstein, you'd have Abbott and Costello meet the Wolfman, you'd have, like, there'd be things that'd be unthinkable today because people are such megastars and the industry works different. There was one or two instances where Bela Lugosi, who's Dracula, played Frankenstein.
Yeah.
That'd be unthinkable today to say like, okay, let's have Jeremy Renner just for a movie do Iron Man. People would be like, what the fuck is going on? But like they did that back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and quite interesting. Yeah.
And the thing is, I mean, horror, not to get all film nerdy here, right? But horror arguably was the first genre that existed anyway. It wasn't called horror, it was called Gothic. But that was what the German silent films back in the day were.
Caligari,
Nosferatu.
That film is over 100 years old now. You can still watch it. Isn't that incredible? Right.
Actually, if people want to check it out, like
it's public domain. It's on YouTube in various versions.
Absolutely, and I highly recommend The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. It's quite fun. And Nosferatu.
Both movies are great.
Nosferatu as well. It's just Dracula. They just changed the name and never admitted to copyright infringement, which is why they got sued and
exactly the estate of Bram Stoker came after them.
Yeah, but also Metropolis. And any Fritz Lang film basically, and that was the beginning of cinema, arguably. I mean, sort of Germans and French have a bit of a fight over who actually had the first moving picture. I mean, you think of Lumiere brothers, all that doesn't matter. But horror was, I mean, Gothic then, but horror was the first thing that sort of really came into play for like mainstream cinema. Then eventually it moved into musical. Musical used to be like a really, really big thing, especially with the coming of sound, and suddenly you could have sound in films, and then singing was possible, all that. But horror then horror always reflects what society in general is experiencing at the moment. So you have, for example, the frenzy of alien and sci-fi horror in the 50s and 60s.
With the threat of atomic warfare.
With the threat of atomic warfare and McCarthyism. With the idea of the enemy in our midst that we can't see and the alien from the other country that may be spying on us.
How's un-American activity,
exactly.
all of that.
And I don't know, you have the surge of zombie films after 9/11 because and end of the world films, because that was sort of, I mean, let's be real, the film industry in the West is still mainly America-centric because Hollywood still very much holds the monopoly on the industry. So when we talk about that reflecting society, we mainly speak about America to this day still. And when 9/11 happened, obviously that felt like the threat to the collapse of civilization, because just something like that was possible, an attack like that was even possible. So then horror started churning out all these society collapsing films, which is at the heart of every single zombie film, right? During the 70s and 80s, we had sort of the classic...
slasher movies.
Yeah, exactly. The slasher movies, which sort of like was passing off the torch from our classic monster films from the 60s, because we also had increased production value. But then there was a fatigue, very similar to what we talked about with the Marvel and superhero films. Because the slasher films, they were fun for a while, but there were too many. With the franchises not ending, with another Nightmare on Elm Street, with another Friday the 13th.
Which is so funny, because you have a movie like Friday the 13th, I think the 8th installment or whatever, Jason Goes to Hell. Or, you know, like maybe it was the 5th already, or even the 4th.
You're like, darling, you seem like you've been there before.
Yes, Jason Goes to Hell. Fairly definitive,
that's where he should
right?
be.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, where it's like, okay, normally you don't come back from that, but fuck that guy.
And you know what's so interesting, and I'm so curious to see if a similar thing will happen. What actually saved horror as a genre was the merging with another genre, comedy.
Oh.
The Scary Movie franchise, the first Scary Movie, in a way, is what saved horror from being dead.
Allow me to disagree on this one. I think, yes, Scary Movie took it to a place, but I think more of the credit, in my opinion, goes to Scream. Because
Scream had to be established before so that Scary Movie could work.
But Scream brought a new type of horror, a self-aware type of horror.
Agreed.
Because, you know, people openly talked about the rules of horror movies because the killer was very much acting according. And then basically it was self-referential.
Yeah.
First 3 installments, you know, like big hits. I watched them all in one night when I was way too young for that. And for that, this, in my opinion, saved modern horror. Or, you know, like basically brought horror into modernity.
The thing why I'm saying is sort of, I unfortunately cannot remember who I'm quoting here, but I'm quoting some person who did research on this. Obviously, it's been years since I've read it, so I can only paraphrase vaguely what stuck with me. But the interesting thing about, yes, Scream was very important because Scream, in a way, turned the genre of slasher into something, like you said, self-aware and a bit less out there. Because in the end, you couldn't really justify the rules of Friday the 13th and
no, exactly, just a very popular character
exactly.
that was brought back.
But the interesting thing is horror, usually, not all the time, but quite often, especially horror films that are meant to be a bit more mainstream, in quotation marks, as far horror can never be mainstream, but like more mainstream than others, is that you have comedic elements in horror films. Because you as an audience, you cannot take it if tension is built up all the time. You need the tension release. And the tension release happens either in the bad thing happening or you laughing.
Yeah, and Scream did both of those things.
Exactly. And the thing is that you can't always have the bad thing happening. So you sometimes... horror and comedy go insanely well together. Because the physical reaction that your body has to laughing or being scared are actually quite similar. You know, heart rate goes up, you sweat a little bit, you have some form of like physical reaction that makes you not sit still. It's actually, like, psychologically speaking and biologically speaking, very similar. And then Scary Movie took that alignment between those genres and made it incredibly obvious. And suddenly people that had been watching all these installments the decades before, you know, like 80s, 90s, and they've been like sort of through the trenches in a way by watching all these horror films, and I'm like, yes, I know. Suddenly they saw the thing they knew, and it was made fun of. But it was not made fun of in a mean way. It was charming, and suddenly it was like, you know what? Yeah, it kind of triggered a little bit of nostalgia for the franchises, for the installments, And then people sort of got out of the rut with horror. And then, of course, Saw sort of like opened up a whole new thing with like in terms of brutality and what was possible and the special effects and all that. But the merging, in one way, the merging of two genres, and also the point where the genre wouldn't take itself too seriously anymore. I mean, arguably horror never takes itself too seriously, but even within that framework, taking yourself even less seriously and thus allowing your audience to have a bit of a more chill time with it, low-key saved the genre in the 90s. And I'm just very curious if a similar thing could happen to salvage the genre of superhero films. Because superhero films have been around since the 80s as well. But
we'll be right back after I went to the loo. Okay, guys, I'm back from the loo and I've got my second beer.
Very good. Can't really get better from this point.
I'm sorry for interrupting you.
But yeah, I don't know. That was just a random thought that I had, because I feel like when we talk about extended universes and franchises and sequels and prequels and all that kind of stuff, we tend to think of the most recent examples that pop into our heads. But horror started it low-key.
It really didn't, not only low-key, I feel like, but it was just something that happened at the time, especially around 30s, 40s and 50s, where it's like, okay, we've basically explored all the serious elements of it, so let's bring in comedians, Abbott and Costello at the time, for example. You know, let's make light of it. And that's perfectly fine. But, you know, like, what I found interesting, the other day I watched The Many Saints of Newark, which is a prequel movie to The Sopranos, which tells the story of adolescent Tony Soprano, capably played by the son of, and I forgot his name now, the actor who played Tony Soprano. The moment James Gandolfini, I do apologise, which I was like, wow, this is incredible. They got his son to play him.
That's cool.
Yeah, quite. And it's a capable movie. I found very refreshing, because you normally never see something like this. And it works better than I expected. But I like this to be an example few and far between. Because I hated to now see a prequel to The Godfather. Why would I want that?
Yeah.
It might be done well. Again, Solo, I enjoyed that. But was it necessary? Most likely no. But the thing is that there's, I think there's so much out there that simply doesn't get the screen time or the attention it deserves, because it's not part of an established franchise.
Yes, I agree.
And, you know, like, I'm all for world building. I think we've established that. It's nice when you've got rich lore and everything. But for example, to say like, okay, there was a time when you only had 3 Star Wars movies, but you already had a lot of graphic novels and books you could read and video games to play to expand on this. This was more niche, and I understand that companies want to make money. But the thing is, you know, like to say, okay, now we've got 9 movies, for better or worse. I think the prequels, well, you know, like, this was George Lucas, it's his thing, you know, like after a while, okay, you can have a debate about when something is so beloved for such a long time, doesn't everybody own it? I don't know, this is probably a debate for a different day.
Sure.
But, you know, like you say, like, okay, I want to tell my original vision and I want to continue it. Fair enough, for better or worse. And the thing is, it's just like, I think the overall franchise fatigue. This is like, for example, or genre even, you know, like zombies. I don't give a fuck about zombies. You know, like, I watched the first 3 seasons of The Walking Dead, was fairly well entertained. I'm interested in the early works of George A. Romero, because, you know, like, Night of the Living Dead is a classic.
Absolutely.
And it's social commentary. That's one thing. I'm not saying something has to have some significance to be entertaining, not at all.
No.
But the thing is, you know, like, I don't want another zombie movie. I'm not going to watch it. I suppose enough people still are, because, you know, like, they're still making those movies or shows. But the thing is, you know, like, come up with, for example, horror, exactly. When they come with things like A Quiet Place, for example, or I've never watched it, but I hear good things about it.
Yeah.
But I watched It Only Comes at Night.
Right.
And I enjoyed that immensely. I was scared the whole time. Or at least in anticipation. You don't get a payoff. And then recently I I think when I went to go and watch Dune 2, there was a trailer for A Quiet Place, the beginning, or something like this, prequel. And I'm like, oh wow, they made another A Quiet Place. And you see the threat in the fucking trailer.
Yeah, what's the point?
Not once. And I haven't watched A Quiet Place 1 or 2. And I'm always like, it could be anything. It could be anything. What are they so afraid of? Now I'm like, okay, yeah, fair enough. And
it's still a fun film because the concept is fun, but yeah.
Yeah, still though. And I mean, like, you can always say, like, mate, the movie's been out for quite some time now. Like, spoilers is now your own problem. Fair enough.
Yeah,
but don't sell your trailer so cheap.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, people who already know the franchise will know what the threat is. And people who don't will be like, okay, maybe this is the movie that makes me watch it.
I have such a bad example for that. Sorry to draw it back to anime again, but it's such a hilarious example for that as well. Because when you have the One Piece going on the manga and the anime, and obviously it's the same story adapted to a different medium, but the anime is bouncing off manga, so the manga is always ahead, so that the anime can has story, right? Because the original author is working on the manga, not the anime. The anime spoiled the biggest anticipated development of the story for 25 years in the new opening of the new season.
Isn't that incredible?
You have to, like, the character, like how like Dragon Ball as well, they work in a certain way where you have your power up after power up after power up after power up, and everything's a different form and all that. And One Piece has been fairly well with sort of detaining that, but we have that to some extent as well. And this final form sort of that we have was anticipated for so long. For years, the author has been like dropping hints. Yes, there will be another one. Yes, eventually. And it was this huge thing. And then they feature that in the opening of the new season months before the anime that season actually gets to that point. Meaning every single episode you watch to that build-up, you see it. There is no reveal.
Isn't that
none.
fun?
Like, what are you doing?
I mean, something I really like to do, movies I enjoy watching very much. Sometimes when I have I don't know, it's a weird mood that strikes me. Sometimes I just rewatch trailers. Because trailers, making a good trailer is...
Shame, that's fine.
The things I do while watching trailers, Jesus Christ. No, but, and for example, I recently, I like to do that before, for example, when I do my Star Wars rewatch, I like to watch the trailer of the movie.
An amuse-bouche?
Yeah, I don't do it exactly before the movie because I'm
just
not...
like sits down on the couch, I want to watch this, but first I'm going to tease myself a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I have to ease myself into it. No, not at all. Not like this. But like when I know, I can't watch it tonight, but I'm going to watch it in 2 days. I like to watch the trailer. And again, a well done trailer is a treat in and of itself.
True.
And then I watched the trailer for Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and this movie by now. And somebody wrote in the comments, guys, isn't the trailer giving away the whole fucking movie? And I'm like, oh yeah, it fucking does. I mean, we all know Anakin turns into Vader.
What?
My God, you spoiled an almost 50-year-old franchise for me. But something like this, and I was like, oh God, yes, that is actually true. And where a friend of mine, she's very... When she started, she did her whole rewatch of the MCU, and everything new that came out, she didn't watch trailers. And for example, me, I don't try to find leaks or anything.
No, me neither.
I watch the trailer because that's given out officially to you. It's like, this is what we'll show you without spoiling you. Hopefully, if somebody's done their job. And she doesn't even watch the trailers because she doesn't. because she doesn't, she's like, okay, if the person behaves like this, I know they're probably having a turn of character or whatever.
Also, look, if the trailer is fucking 3 minutes long, then I feel like, how are you gonna show me 3 minutes? Like YouTube ads you see these days, how are you not gonna spoil the thing for me?
Trailers used to be so much longer. These days, I think a normal trailer is around 2.5 minutes.
That's long.
That is long. But have you ever watched the original trailer for A Man of All Seasons?
Jesus.
That's one of those, I think it's a costume drama, I never watched it. That thing is like, I don't know, 4-5 minutes long. It's like, yes, watch this. I'm like, oh, my wife, A Man of All Seasons. And scene. A Man of All Seasons. And they're like, fucking hell, I get it. I watched the movie. Can I watch this one now?
But you know what? And trailers, right? And that reminded me of a thing that I thought of earlier, and I don't know how to get there, so I'm just going to use this as a segue. Trailers mainly used to, because I started watching trailers ages ago as well, but like thinking of like 2000s. Trailers used to sell the film by endorsing it, by dropping certain names to guarantee us a certain quality, right? So we're like, okay, this and this director made this film, must be good. Or this and this actors in this project must be good. Or this and this composer did the music, must be cool, right? Because we associate a certain standard of work with certain people. I think trailers sort of low-key stopped doing this in a little bit. Like, it feels like it, because I feel like it used to be bigger, like the name dropping, if you want to call it like that, used to be more prominent. And I think that ties in with extended universes and prequels and sequels as well.
Yeah, we just got used to seeing big names.
Yes, as well, but I think one reason other than making money, why franchises are such a prominent way and such a resilient way of making movies that just stays, is that we rely, as the audience, we trust the franchise to deliver a film that is at least up to par to the films we've seen before.
Mm-hmm.
So we think if this is, say, a Marvel film with this and this big name, it will look good. The CGI will look fun, even though that kind of suffered lately as well because the CGI dropped the ball. But MCU dropped the ball. But let's go back 10 years, right? 5 years, whatever. Like we were like, okay, I sort of know what I'm getting, and I think that is why. I mean, that's on the one hand understandable that your average movie Joe cinema goer will absolutely rely on that in a way, because they feel more safe watching something from an established franchise that is huge. But on the other hand, that double takes away from indie films.
Well, I mean, I get the idea. For one, okay, I know the rules of this world. I know to a certain extent what to expect and can still be surprised. I get that.
The quality of what we see.
But the thing is, exactly, and this is something, yes, you get to see a new trailer, let's say, before you watch a movie or whatever, and it's like, okay, new things, but also familiar things. Mm-hmm. And then you get thrown into something that's not a franchise, or not yet, and it's like, okay, I have to learn about something new entirely. I have to get a picture from the little information I get right now from the trailer, if it's done well or not. Mm-hmm. And exactly, that's a good point. I never thought about it this way, but exactly, the trailer gives you, okay, first shot is the protagonist. I was like, okay, it's Doctor Strange movie. Mm-hmm. Okay, this, I know certain rules about this. It's like, oh my god, now they're bringing something new, but in a familiar setting, mm-hmm. which they can play with, fair enough. But if you then, let's say, you cut from a Doctor Strange trailer to, let's say, the trailer for Nomadland. Mm-hmm. I haven't watched Nomadland yet, but it's the only example I can come up with from the top of my head.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know nothing about this. So, yeah. It's a bit like, plus, can we just acknowledge for a fact, is it possible that trailers dropped their narrator around the same time that documentaries did? Because it is now no longer okay in a documentary to have a narrator, because everything you need to be filmed that you get it from context.
Yeah.
It's like either from the interviews, but you no longer hear the questions being asked for the most part.
Yeah.
You see the film material, which is in and of itself interesting because that is work. A narrator, of course, makes that easier to edit something like this. But the trailers used to be in a time, in a world, and always like I love the trailer for Star Trek First Contact. In his dreams, he can hear them. And you know, love it. This guy must have been the richest motherfucker on the planet for a while. All of a sudden he's out of a job because he used to speak all the trailers. And all of a sudden it's like, the trailers show you what's going on. And then you get very, let's say, disjointed sentences. This, scene, scene.
Yeah.
Summer, scene. Get, scene. Ready, and so weiter.
Gives me anxiety, to be honest, because I'm just like, I can't follow.
Yeah, it's like, okay, this, what? And like, I just, you know, like, I can't believe the whole thing anymore. This, whatever, this summer, this Christmas, whatever. Get ready for the adventure of a lifetime. It's like, I'm 35 now. This must have been 780 adventures of a lifetime. I don't think I can take much more. Please, just let me breathe. Can't we just cuddle?
Yeah, that's so true. But I don't know. Yeah, you're right. Like, I mean, I've stopped watching trailers so long ago because I feel like they spoil stuff for me. The kind of same as your friend does, and. But it's a bit of a shame because it's an art in of itself being lost. Because I don't know, when I think of trailers, I think either of old DVD or VHS.
Oh yeah.
You know, where like you put it in and you first had to get through like the trailers before the menu would come, where you could select to start the film. Or in the case of VHS, just watch it. You know, like VHS will just, for the people who don't know, it just plays. You cannot select anything.
Fast forward.
Yeah, that's it. But like, it's funny. It's funny how much that changed and how much. But I genuinely think, and I don't know if I will die on this hill, but at least I'll firmly sit down on it for now. That the rise of extended universes, of franchises, of prequels, of sequels has something to do with it. Because when we know a thing already, we don't need that much to be told. You know, like if we know the world, it's just another film in it. I don't need a trailer that feeds me bits of the story because I'm fairly familiar with the rules.
And don't get me wrong, I get this, and I think, yeah, exactly. We might have become, or, you know, like I feel that my viewing behavior might have become complacent in a way too, because I feel like if I go into a movie completely blind, where people are like, oh, come, let's watch this movie, I heard good things about it. I'm like, I enjoy the trailers I watched before that. Because, you know, like, it's 2.5 minutes. I'm like, might be good music, might be entertaining, you know, like, edited in an entertaining way. I might enjoy this. And then the movie starts. Okay, now I have to focus. Now I have to learn about this so I understand what's going on, depending on what you watch, of course. But, you know, yeah, it's just like, the whole thing, of course, I know we're exaggerating. There are so many standalone films and shows and whatever that come out, but the thing is, the biggest things at the moment are not. And the thing is, you know, like, this is like, let's just put this, you know, out there. It's like, this is like, you can no longer just meet me. It's just like, you need to know my backstory, you know, like, and then you need to know the backstory of my mother, which is fairly interesting. That woman was in the military, so, you know, like, and I'm you know, like, I'm not that interesting.
Films are trauma dumping on us.
Yeah, exactly. And then you know, like meet Christian's sister. I don't have a sister. That's what you thought. Alternate timeline. I'm like, fucking hell. I'm just.
Oh my god! Alternate timelines. Oh my god. Yeah. I feel like that's a whole can of worms in of its own. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think at some point we have to do continuities, you know, like really, for example, like rebooting a franchise, like. For example, in graphic novels, that's such a big thing. DC used to do the New 52. That means every week a new comic comes out, and normally they tend to, you know, fall behind because, you know, like, you're rebooting an entire franchise and you have to establish what of the old canon is still valid and what have you renewed. So yeah, continuities in and of itself will come up, I'm sure. But yeah, it's like I don't know. For some reason, don't get me wrong, what I found very refreshing with Dune, for example, that they said, we're going to make a 2-part movie. It's not going to be a trilogy. I was like, well, that's nice. I just have to watch the second movie. I'm done for now, apparently. And I do enjoy me a big blockbuster movie.
Sure.
But, just I'm like, sometimes it's just nice to go into a movie that's not that. Where it's just like, oh, this is this, not little, but this is this project, this is about this, okay, yeah, just watch a story for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And maybe it's based on a book. If you're interested, read the fucking book or whatever. But I don't want necessarily, and summer blockbusters have always been a thing, but I don't want the next phase and whatever. I just want okay, this looks big, this looks fun, this looks popcorn, let's go.
And you know what's insane? Ever since we started speaking about this, I've been racking my brain to find an example of a film that is not a franchise, a prequel or a sequel, or it doesn't have one, that is not, say, a very artsy film or a classic, but just an average mainstream film. And just now I thought of the first example that I actually think that applies to, which is fucking Hancock from the 2000s with Will Smith.
There were plenty more, of course, but the first one I can think of, now that you said it,
Yeah.
that I can think of, and yours is still a superhero movie.
Exactly, that's the thing, yeah.
The first one that I can think of in recent memory, and I know there's been others, so you can immediately shout us down with facts. But we're talking about what our brain is conditioned to right now.
Yeah.
We've talked about this for quite an amount of time now.
Yeah.
The first one I can think about is Air, the Nike movie, and that movie can go fuck itself. I was sitting in that movie and I was becoming increasingly uncomfortable. It's like, wait a minute, this is $1 billion company. This isn't even about the company, going bankrupt. This is just, they might close down their basketball shoe division. It's just like, and then one of the final scenes is Ben Affleck as the CEO comes in, at a strategic moment, and they make a bit light of that. It's like, yeah, by the way, we're now we're estimated now over $1 billion. And I'm like, you're not the underdog. And then Matt Damon breaks out his speech like, Mike, this isn't about this is about legacy. And it's like, go fuck yourselves, guys. And the movie closes on a neon Nike logo where I was like, I felt really unclean in that cinema. And I'm like, what the fuck did I just watch? And I spoke to someone.
Propaganda, you watched
propaganda. Yeah, like it was an hour and a half long, or however long the fucking film was.
Advert film.
Yeah, it really was. And the next day I went to work and I spoke to my chef at the restaurant. I said, I watched Air. He said, why would you watch an hour and a half? It's like, yeah, exactly. I'm like, I said, I realised sometimes I'm a bit slow on the uptake. Because I'm like, I suggested going in that movie. My mate was like, yeah, sure, I like shoes.
What kind of reasons does he see? I like shoes, let's go.
Yes, I like shoes. And we went in there and I'm like, what the fuck is happening? At least, the Steve Jobs movie starring Michael Fassbender was critical of him. Not enough, because Steve Jobs is a fucking arsehole, or was a fucking arsehole. But
Michael Fassbender did quite amazing performance on that
Michael
one.
Fassbender.
I love
and
that.
Seth Rogen. Seth Rogen was so well cast as Wozniak.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because I had put up Seth Rogen a bit like, yeah, he's funny, okay. But, he was great in that movie. He because Wozniak apparently is such a good guy. I've never heard anyone say anything bad about Wozniak.
And he did all the work.
Yeah, exactly. And he just enjoyed doing those things.
Yep.
And Jobs was a prick.
Yep.
And that I'm saying that having a MacBook Pro.
Same.
And all of that. And can you imagine turning that into a franchise? Jobs, Resurrection, it's just like...
He's back, wait, what? No, but I have a question now. What place do movies occupy that are being made by the same director, that have a very distinct look, like very clearly that in that film, but are not necessarily sharing plot lines? But I feel like in a way they are still a franchise. Say a Christopher Nolan film.
It's clearly visible it's a Christopher Nolan movie.
And I feel like Because I was thinking about that, we were talking about quality earlier, right? Because we use names to sell the product. And obviously we always do that. And now I'm thinking, like, if we have big directors that have a very specific visual style, that may even change slightly, but still, I mean, I recently watched, with my parents, I watched 3 of the 4 Jordan Peele films. We watched Nope. We watched them backwards, basically. We watched Nope, we watched Us, and then we watched Get Out. We didn't watch Black Klansman. I still need to see that. But it's sort of interesting because you feature the same actors and parts. Because Daniel Kaluuya, I think is his name, is the lead actor in Get Out and in Nope. Nope and Get Out, and even in Us, where there's not necessarily the same cast involved, it is still very clearly a Jordan Peele film, and I'm just wondering, does that count?
In a way, I get where you're coming from, because I have this nowhere, I feel, more apparent than with Wes Anderson. Because sometimes I'm really in the mood for a Wes Anderson movie.
Right.
And sometimes I can't stand the look of a Wes Anderson movie.
Agreed.
It's always, every frame is like a painting. It's perfectly composed.
Yeah.
It feels artificial. I think that's
the point, I believe.
Yeah, I think so too. But I could not go to a Wes Anderson marathon because it's clearly a Wes Anderson movie. But there's also a reason why there are film boxes dedicated to directors.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the Almodovar movies, like very popular in Britain. You can always find an Almodovar box or 2 at an HMV. And the thing is,
Spanish, very intense.
Alfred Hitchcock,
Yeah.
for example. And it's clear it's an Alfred Hitchcock movie.
Always.
And that's in and of itself, you could call that, I don't know, a director's extended universe. Because, also Christopher Nolan, it's a very distinct look and feel to a movie.
Just the scale of those films.
The same goes, as varied as they may be, the same goes to me, because I know them and I know the director. Maybe I wouldn't feel that way if I didn't know it was directed by him, but Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, I was thinking the same
where
thing.
Where I'm like, even Barry Lyndon, which is, like, Spartacus, not so much, but what would you call it, when Kubrick really got into his own, we were just like, this is a Kubrick movie, good, don't get me wrong, I haven't met a Kubrick movie I didn't find at least interesting, but it's very clear. Spielberg,
Tarantino.
The same,
and
Spielberg did a lot of things, almost with things, like, for example, The Color Purple, or Schindler's List, because those are very heavy topics.
But his action films all have a very similar vibe.
Fair enough. And he approached both The Color Purple and Schindler's List with the utmost respect.
He did.
I feel, I'm saying this as a...
I also quite like him, so I'm a bit biased. After the last Oscars, he's adorable in those. He's so...
I'm making this statement as a, white heterosexual cis person, so, this is an outside view, obviously. I'm also not Jewish.
Yeah.
But also, if somebody, like, the moment I hear it's a Spielberg movie, I say, like, yeah, that makes sense.
I'm intrigued. Yeah.
No, but I realize, that makes sense. You start noticing certain things. And this is why AI, even though I don't like the movie, is very interesting, because Kubrick was always so impressed with Spielberg's work and vice versa. And they said, I could probably never do a movie like he did. And they started a collaboration. Kubrick died, obviously. And Steven Spielberg finished AI, and I think it's a horrible movie. But, I respect the project, because for someone to so conscientiously go out and say, I want to not do what I normally do, I respect the shit out of that.
I agree.
Because, you can do whatever you want. You can branch out into a lot of different, like, genres or whatever. Look at Ridley Scott. He's done most anything, I feel. But at the same time, it's like his Napoleon, from the look, feels a lot like Gladiator to me, at the very least. His Alien feels, in a way, similar to Blade Runner, even though they've got vastly different topics. Because, like, you're still the same person approaching a genre.
I was gonna say it's the genre. That's connecting them.
So you have a certain point of view on it, and I find this much more forgivable in a way of like this. I think this is a nice idea. Director's extended universe, and even the Christopher Nolan Batman movies feel akin to something like Tenet, even though it's much more grounded, which is hard to say for a comic book adaptation, or Inception, or even Interstellar. And I'm like, I can see this is the same director.
Yeah.
And it's nice for, in this case, I feel like it's nice for them to have a sort of footprint, because I feel like if I don't like it, I just don't watch it.
I mean, that is the definition of auteur cinema, isn't it? Which, I mean, arguably nowadays we don't really have or do auteur cinema anymore, not like we used to in the 50s and 60s. I mean, Hitchcock being the most prominent example.
We're talking Belmondo and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Fellini.
Exactly. But I mean, Tarantino is sort of the closest to what we have as an auteur these days, because I mean, we're talking about people who wrote the entire script themselves and then shot it themselves.
Jarmusch.
Yeah, and I mean, Tarantino calls himself the last auteur in that way, and it's not completely wrong, because he has a very distinct style. No, in terms of like he abides by certain set standards that sort of define auteur cinema, not least the chapters that usually go through his films, like the different topics, and I mean, like I said, the fact that they write the script themselves and then shoot it themselves. Obviously there's other people involved in the process, but like, it's theirs.
He has a surprising amount of control over what's happening.
Exactly, and I think that I mean auteur cinema may in a way be, I mean, I feel like other way around. I need to approach it the other way around. I feel like extended universes / franchises, anything like that, come from two different places. Either it is an already existing property that works, usually in form of a book, maybe several books, which is then extended to different media. We've talked about that. Or it is actually the fact that the filmmaker has such a distinct style that it is recognizable. And that is auteur cinema. And that has been around for decades. It's been around for so long that it's basically died out now. And I mean, I would maybe go so far as to call franchises the evolved, slightly bastardized cousin of auteur cinema.
What would you call it? The industrialized?
Yeah, sort of.
Because, you know, like it's
bit less soul, bit more profit.
I suppose so. And like, if you watch up to a certain point, for example, I feel Luc Besson. If you watch, like, for example, La Femme Nikita, because, you know, this Jean Reno has a small part in it that is the inspiration for Leon the Professional. That, you know, like, it's great to compare the similarities, you know, like, and the style. And even if you take something in between, like Le Grand Bleu, the Big Blue, where he's, you know, like this apnea diver, also is Jean Reno. And then, you know, like, there's a point in time, I feel like, for example, for Luc Besson, where it was like becoming, what would you call it, more alike what we were used to from Hollywood. For example, Fifth Element. I love that movie to death, but it's more Americanized, and I find in a way, and I find it so interesting because when you watch Leon, I feel like, yes, there's New York, and it's clearly, but the way he films it, it's not the way we normally see New York filmed, I feel like.
I know what you mean.
And like
the lens is different. We see
lens,
it in a different way.
The angles, exactly. He's got he views the city
grading,
differently.
Yeah.
It's like the way, for example, Michael Mann films a city. You've got Heat, Collateral, Miami Vice to a much lesser extent, but there are beautiful shots in there. He's got a very clear way he portrays cities. And there's like this, exactly. It's like auteur cinema, like, I don't know, Herzog or whatever you want to call it back in the day, it was clear.
Yeah.
It was an event when one of those movies came out, and it's like you have this in a way like with certain names that still draw, because Christopher Nolan, people are at least interested.
Oh yeah.
And,
I mean, that's one of the main reasons which made me watch Oppenheimer. Cillian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr., and Christopher Nolan. It's like, okay, cool, let's go.
If you look at Oppenheimer, for example, I feel like even though it's something I feel he hasn't done an awful lot, like where it's set in terms of time period, you can still clearly recognize it as a Nolan movie.
Yeah.
And even if you go back quite a bit, like for example, The Prestige, that I feel like many people haven't seen.
Oh, it's such a good film.
That's
I mean,
the thing, there's
I'm a bit nostalgic about it, maybe.
Exactly, there's debate about this, because I remember it as a very good movie, and I have to rewatch it because I haven't watched it in like 15 years.
Okay.
And I really want to rewatch it.
It's been not that long for me, but it's been a while for me as well.
But even there, it's like this is a Nolan movie, clearly. Shutter Island, and you see those things, you know, like of course the style with age, you know, like evolves with the person, but you can still see like for example, even with actors, unless they're like I don't know, unreal, you can still see there's a certain style of how they approach a character, and that's just normal.
As
that's
actors, well, like, yeah, obviously you have your MO. You gotta have a certain way of doing your profession. Like
you've had your life. That means you approach things a certain way, and it shows.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works better, sometimes it doesn't. But this is really interesting. I didn't see this coming at all. You know, turning this around, the whole idea of, you know, like saying, okay, this is why we talk about a body of work. Because, you know, like in
that's a good point.
This I feel like this is for the first time I sort of understand why people say this. Right. I hope this makes sense to everybody. But it's like, exactly, this none of your works will stand on its own, because, you know, like they all are interconnected, I feel like.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, directors or whatever, they'll clearly say like, yeah, from my last project I remember we did it like this or like this, and it's fairly obvious. So it's so fun to watch someone's work throughout the years, you know, if especially if somebody had a long career. Like for example, even Jaws, which I think Spielberg again, I watched this as a kid just for the shocks of it.
Yeah.
Now I watch Jaws. First of all, it's a fun movie.
I was gonna say, for the fun of it.
Second of all, it's fucking well written, you know, like when you have those scenes, Brody sitting with his son, the three of them sitting in the boat together talking about those things. Those are great fucking actors.
The film is being made
together.
fun of so much, but honestly, it has so much merit.
The shark is the weakest thing when you see it.
Yeah.
It still scares the shit out of you when you don't see it, but my God, is it a solid movie. I watched it for Halloween a few years ago. I was like, oh, I remember watching it. It was kind of fun. I'm like, fucking hell, that's a good movie. And I always made a bit of fun of people's like, yeah, Spielberg made Jaws. And I'm like, yeah, Jaws, fucking Jaws. But no, it's a fucking good movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Like, it's interesting. I feel like the extent to which the question of prequels, sequels, extended universes, franchises, all of that, it extends so much into everything, because I think the more you think about it, the more examples you will find of things that are, I mean, we always look for patterns, don't we?
Yeah.
Like, as humans, we just do. And this is, I mean, films and the film industry is, of course, not an exception to that. But it's so interesting. The more you think about it, the more examples you will find, and the more, if you look back at film history, even just the last 20 years, right? Just like from the 2000s to now, it's such a rapid development. You don't really notice it whilst you're in it. But I mean, me personally, and it may be due to my own viewing habits, in any way, sort of form, but I feel like we've been in a little bit of a drought in terms of films, like overall. Probably also due to the COVID pandemic and the writer's strike, because, you know, there was not a lot of time in between in terms of film industry 2 years or 1.5 years is not enough time for like a decent amount of movies to come out, which takes way longer.
Yeah.
But maybe it's the nostalgia lens because I was younger. Maybe it's the circumstances I just mentioned. But I feel like we used to live in a film environment that used to be a bit more vibrant, that used to be a bit more varied. In a way, like even within the genres, I feel like you don't have one franchise. Nowadays, you have like one franchise or one extended universe or two that sort of defines the whole genre. Coming back to the superhero films, it's all Marvel and DC. You've got nothing else. But I think we used to have a time where, say, if you action film, what's the first franchise that you think of when you think of action? Terminator, for example.
But something that's quite interesting, for example, if you look at movies by the decade, I feel like there again, there's something like a body of work or an extended universe for a decade. Because I feel like if you've got a movie from the 60s, it has a very distinct look and feel, an outlook at the world, like because of what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And the thing is, of course, there's always trends, like, for example, the 90s being very, like, oh God, the Cold War's over, like, we're having a great time. The 80s, larger than life and everything. I think simply with the capabilities in filmmaking or franchise making, whatever you want to call it, with what we're capable of doing today, that was literally not possible 20 years ago.
It's true.
It's just like we're going to do it until no one comes anymore, like where it's just simply no longer profitable. I mean, I was shocked when about 4 years ago, for the very first time, laid eyes upon Disney Plus. A friend of mine, she had it, and I thought, Disney Plus, well, this must be a very, very concise affair. Because how much is owned by Disney at all? I know Touchstone belonged to Disney. And I'm looking through this and, like fucking hell.
Everything.
This belongs to you too. And then you look at a graph or something like that, or a chart or something like,
yeah.
Fuck me. And the thing is, like everything sort of has its high point, and then most likely with any franchise, series, TV, doesn't matter, movies, you're probably going to end it past that point. But maybe at a point where it's still good, because just because you hit your peak doesn't mean what's coming after isn't good.
No, true.
But for example, we're talking 35 seasons of The Simpsons. And I think with The Simpsons, at this point, we're just used to them being around. Because I think, like, I watched the latest episode just about 2 days ago, and it was utter shit.
Yeah.
Sorry, and I hate to be so harsh about this, because in recent seasons, there were some episodes where I was like, oh, this feels really nice, this is good. But this was utter shit. I felt like, this is my opinion.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I sort of understand why they're still there, because, like, The Simpsons started becoming The Simpsons when they left the Tracy Ullman show. The year I was born. I don't know a world without The Simpsons.
It's incredible, isn't it?
As shit as it may be, or as much as it might have lost in quality, there is a comfort.
There is.
In knowing that something's there.
Yeah, agreed.
And like where I'm like, I may not watch it as much anymore, but I'm like, they're still there.
It's there.
Exactly, and
it's got your back in a way.
Nothing is going to be good for 35 seasons. I'm putting that out there. Unless you bring in new writing staff that's completely on the bleeding edge.
The show would be different.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then people are going to complain again.
And of course, things have changed over the years in terms of staff and everything.
Yeah, of course, got it.
But that's the thing. For me, it feels like, and maybe to work towards conclusion, to me it feels like exactly that. No one's looking for a definitive point anymore. Yes, along the way, this is phase so-and-so, and then this. Well, it's just like, take Endgame and be done with it. and be proud of what you've accomplished. I mean, there's a lot of movies that are criticized, like Thor: The Dark World or something like that.
Yeah.
Never watched it. But at the same time, you've got Thor: Ragnarok, which is...
it's my favorite Marvel film.
A lot of people say that.
Yeah.
And people say, like, even if you haven't watched any other Marvel films, watch
hilarious.
that one. Supposed to be really good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there is no sense of finality anymore. It's just like, let's just end this. Yes, it's peak profitable right now, but we can say we've ended it on a high note, and we didn't stop at some point unorganically, or it was unorganic for a while now, but we didn't have to stop at some point in the next phase we were doing because it was no longer profitable.
Aren't they shooting the 6th Pirates of the Caribbean right now?
I read mixed things because I skim those things at this point.
But
where it's like
regardless-
I think it might even be a remake, a reboot, or whatever.
No idea, but I agree. The thing is, I feel like it's not necessarily a recent issue. I think at least for as long as I have been consciously watching films, so like say from the age of like 4 or 5 onwards, I remember my parents, mainly my dad, not necessarily complaining, but just commenting on the fact that there's nothing standalone anymore. You always, either you add a sequel where it didn't seem organic, or you end a film in a way that there could be a sequel. You still end it, but it could continue.
Yeah, sequel.
And that got worse.
And the thing is,
worse is too judgy. That just got more intense.
And don't get me wrong, I like to watch around Halloween, the original Halloween.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic film.
Mike Myers, no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
John Carpenter, who even did the theme for the bloody film.
The John
original.
Carpenter, the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, brilliant, yeah.
And that went on and on and on. He was no longer involved. Same for Friday the 13th. Same for Nightmare on Elm Street. Some of them better, some of them worse. For example, Freddy's New Nightmare was fairly self-referential, like by Wes Craven. But the thing is, the things that were continued ad nauseum were never, so to speak, the heavy hitters. They were fairly niche. No one was really like, oh my god, another, Friday the 13th. Yes, the fans of the franchise like, okay, that was shit, but still, sort of, guilty pleasure sort of thing. But when when some of the biggest franchises in the world simply don't know where to stop.
Yeah.
Well, you had, there was this, I think it was on Twitter or something, where a hand passed the lightsaber to the gauntlet of Thanos, or whatever you want to call it, after they basically, surpassed The Force Awakens in terms of sales. I think it was either Infinity War or Endgame.
Yeah, one of those.
Where it's just like, don't you have any sort of pride to say, this was good, let's be done with it? And this is also maybe not a new thing. Again, we have in the 30s, 40s and 50s the monster movies that went on forever, that at some point were no longer that good. But I'm just like, and that's the thing. Here we go again. It's an industry. And they say, like, let's see how long something's profitable. Not how long something really has a shelf life. But I'm just like, and this is maybe I've got cynical, maybe I've got older and I'm no longer as involved with things as I used to be. But I don't want to, because a lot of things are just churned out, and I'm like, I'm not going to get hyped over this just to feel like this is a cash grab and then be devastated by it. I've got other things going on in my life. And it's nice to be passionate about something.
Yeah.
But like, this is the thing, and maybe we don't have the billionaire mindset, I don't know. But I feel
That's
like...
a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Because, you had a good run. What you've done is unprecedented. Please stop.
I think that's more the artist in us speaking than the salesman, because we're like,
I suppose
it's probably more important.
we're still very idealistic.
Yeah.
And this is not, like saying, this is, we're not trying to sound in any way hoity-toity or anything.
No.
But it's just like...
If anything, I feel like we're trying to defend what we like.
Yeah, exactly. And as someone who says, like, I've thoroughly enjoyed what you've been doing up to this point, please stop.
Yeah.
You can still do...
Let me rewatch this and be happy about it.
Do the merchandise, make another special edition, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But just, like, if you don't have anything significant to say, where you say, like, this needs to be put out there, instead of just having staff writers where it's like, let's explore this.
And don't get me wrong, I'm happy if you can add to it in a meaningful way. Then I'm so glad. I'm like, yes, give me more. But when it stops having content, when it stops being in any way significant to the thing,
let me tell you,
kill it.
I went to see Rogue One not expecting anything. I was like, okay, they're doing spin-off movies now, this is going to be bad. And I enjoyed the shit out of Rogue One. I do to this very day. I thought it was an enrichment to the saga. I was like, this was great. Thank you for this. But unless you feel like, exactly, there's no more urgency to tell anything. It's just like you have staff writers and it's like, okay, we need to explore this direction, and this direction. What's the point? And then at the same time, like, it's up to us. Are we still paying to watch this? Are we going to watch it when it's home released or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, they say, the happy ending happens where you turn off the film. So that goes also for if you want to continue watching the different installments.
Exactly. And the thing is, though, I think it comes down to more, what would you call it, distinguished behavior as a consumer, if that makes sense, where you're just like, it's so easy to consume those things. Oh, it's now on Disney Plus, it's now on Netflix, I'm going to watch it after all. And they get their clicks that way because, of course, they realize how many people watch this and engage with it for however long. And just say, like, no, I'm not going to watch this. I'm interested in the MCU in a way. I think, like, this might be a fun experience. But at the same time...
I really want to watch Thor Ragnarok with you.
we can certainly do that. But there's, like, nothing where I'd say, like, I prioritize over something else right now.
And that's what I mean? So fair.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, on that note,
I think that wraps it up for all of us here.
It does, certainly. Certainly. That was maybe a bit too cynical than they intended it to be, but well, I know it's a very polarizing topic in itself.
I think it came from a place of love. I think that came across. We're always, of course, very anxious to hear what you guys have to say about this. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.
All right. Bye-bye, guys.